This is a live stream, la-di-da-di-da. What does it really mean? Okay, hey. Well, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm shaking like a leaf on a buzzy tree. Rub-a-doo-ba-doo, and wanting to know I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Yeah, yeah, I'm all shook up. What a stupid song. I know. I mean, when you really think about it, King of Rock and Roll, he had a lot of really dumb songs. Yeah, he did. But to give him credit, he didn't write any of those songs. The songs were just kind of brought to him so he could, cover them. Elvis Presley was the first karaoke singer. Hey, Boozhoo! Welcome back to Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo, the podcast about OJIBWE language and culture. I would like to say a very special Mino Giga Jeb to a friend of the show, Brandy Marie. Ladies and gentlemen, not everybody knows who Brandy Marie is. She is the unsung hero of the 21st century. Nah. Boozhoo, Brandy. How you doing? Welcome back to the show. It's a Sunday morning. It is the morning of the prayer day. Huh, sweetie? It's Anima A. Geisha Good again. I know. Can you believe it? No. How is it? It seemed like it was just yesterday. It was last Sunday. Where are these weeks going? I just don't know. Time is speeding up. We're heading for a crash. I don't know. Probably not. It's a beautiful day at that. Yeah, it is, huh? I mean, I don't know. The sun's not up here yet, but I've been sort of homebound lately. You've been homebound? Well, I didn't, by choice. I didn't need the government to tell me to quarantine. 2021 just became the year of me rediscovering my sedentary lifestyle. I used to walk around town every day. Get up just early in the morning. I would get up early, even, I guess in recent years I would have coffee first. But I remember being in my 20s, I would just get up, put on my shoes right next to the bed, and wake up outside as I was walking. And I spent a good part of my life. I remember lots of times I couldn't really count on my car to work. So I just started walking. I started in college, I guess. I had to walk about, 20 blocks? It was 2 miles or something. When I was a boy, we walked 2 miles to school. I mean, college. So Brandy Marie is going way too fast for sure. You too, huh? Yeah, time is just speeding up. I mean, I don't know. It feels like a weird phenomenon. But here we are again on a prayer day. Let's see. How do prayer days start? What was church like? I don't go anymore. You walk in, you say hello to everybody, you sit down, you get your little brochure there, pamphlet. Oh, okay. Yeah, the pastor comes up. No, it's not even a pastor, it's a guy. It's like the pastor's sidekick. This is what I remember from church. For any of you watching today who've never been to church, this is how the small town Midwestern Minnesota churchgoers, this is their cultural religious practice. You wake up on a Sunday morning, and Anima A. Geisha Good. And you have your cereal, maybe coffee, whatever. And you put on clothes you only wear for a couple hours on Sunday. These are your church clothes. They're clean. They're a little more formal. They're, whatever. And you go into a building later. I'm not. Anyway, church. But you'd start and there'd be a pastor up there 2 ladies on each side, one playing organ, one playing piano. And they play just kind of a welcome music, it's always church music, I guess, but the idea is sort of like to set the mood when people are walking in. They might be playing like a hymn or something. Do they? I don't even remember anymore. They should. But in our church, we had a big old bell. It was like the old days. And some guy, that was his job. He would ring the bell at 11 o'clock. So the whole town knew we were going to start. Bing, bong, bing, bong. They must still do that. I don't know. And then the pastor's sidekick gets up there. He's not the real pastor. He's just a guy wearing a suit, usually made out of polyester. And he'll say, "All rise," and lead the first song. And you'll sing something like, "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war." All right? This ain't no place for peace and love. This is a war. And then he'd do the announcements. "Oh, don't forget to, blah, blah, blah. We got this missionary work, Get some random, vague description of some family you didn't realize the church was supporting in Mexico somewhere to build a school or something. I don't know. And, they sing another song. You might lead a prayer. And then it's like the last 20 minutes or something. He turns it over to the pastor. He's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, now without further ado, the man you've all been here to see, I present to you, Pastor whoever." No, they don't do that. And the crowd roars, "Yeah!" No, because you see, in the Baptist way, you must never show any emotion. The Baptists were like the Vulcans. You couldn't clap. Somebody did like special music, which happened a lot. There'd be like one person would come up and do a solo. You'd sing some songs as a congregation, but then there'd be that moment, the solo performance, the special music. And I'm not ashamed to say I've been special music guy. You got to please your grandma once in a while. Go up there with your acoustic guitar, sing a song in front of everybody. But they never applause. I don't know what biblical teaching that has to do with it, but you don't do anything. If you're lucky, you get a bunch of beaming faces, that little sideways, and one person in the audience will be like, "Amen." Or the pastor will get up and he'll say, "Can I get an amen?" And the whole congregation will, "Amen." But they don't like to clap. You're not supposed to clap. So it's a weird kind of moment. I always felt guilty by not clapping at performers. I always felt like we should probably, applause the pastor at the end too, even though he bored you to tears. Talking about time moving faster. Just compare this last week we went through, to any church service you ever sat through when you were 7. I guarantee that one church service felt longer than this whole last week did. So you sit there and, waste your youth listening to a man drone on in a brown polyester suit, quoting scripture and not really understanding it, but you can't tell because you're a little kid. And then finally, you have that last song and the final prayer, and then he says, "Go in peace" or something. And then he and his wife walk down the aisle first, so they can be at the door and say goodbye to you later. That's kind of sweet in a weird way. It's like the pastor, "All right, and so saith the Lord, peace be unto you." And we didn't say that; it's a Lutheran thing. But then the pastor would close the Bible, and everybody would beam, do the sideways smile. And then he'd walk down the aisle first like it's a wedding or something. with his wife. She hasn't said a word all hour. And they stand back there and you walk by and you shake their hand. Hey, nice sermon. You know, maybe put an extra couple of dollars in his pocket there. You go, hey man, get yourself something nice. Buy something for the wife. Why don't you and the wife go out to dinner? What am I talking about? Hey, Geisha Good, the prayer day. Brandy Marie says, yep, same here, but I haven't been in a church for years. Only Christmas Eve, candlelight service. Yeah, you got to go on Christmas Eve. When you get your own little candle there and you become a fire hazard. Holy night. Is that how that goes? Oh, holy night. Or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, churches, I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed in how they all caved to the COVID restrictions. You know, there's your faith in action. It's like that bulletproof bullet dome glass shield the Pope rides around with. It's like he's got no faith. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm trusting God, but I'm getting a bulletproof shield just in case somebody wants to shoot at me. And all these churches like, oh, the government told us not to gather in his name and pray. So better listen to Caesar. But to be fair, I stopped going to church before COVID. I used to go all the time with me and my grandma. I mean, for years. I grew up in the church. Go to Sunday school. Go to the summer program. I remember one year, me and Lenny, we had Little League in the mornings. And so you'd ride your bike into the school and meet a bunch of other kids, you know, like 5th, 6th grade. And you had to bring your own equipment. We could use the baseball field because there's no way to stop us. But it's not like the school gave us uniforms or anything. I would just like to go on record to say, you know, LaPorte School did nothing for our Little League summer baseball program. We had to play other Little League teams in our jeans and T-shirts. You know how demoralizing it is when you're a 6th grader going to go face off another team, baseball team, summer baseball team. And they show up on a bus with matching uniforms and cleats. And we're standing around in our baseball field in just our street clothes. We don't even have a name because you don't have uniforms. What's the point? You know, all these other Little League teams had like sponsors. They'd be like, oh, we're Vinyl Sash of Bemidji. We're the Bemidji JCs. We're the Bemidji, you know, whatever. You know, our Little League team. It was kind of like volunteer or something. We had 2 coaches, though. I think they were hired on. They were like summer workers for the school district or something. But a couple of high schoolers were our coaches. And we played softball. We played hardball, fast pitch. You know, I don't even think we wore batting helmets half the time. But I remember one game we got in trouble with. I don't know where the umpire came from, but there was a real umpire. He got to wear a uniform. And the other team had uniforms, and we're standing in our jeans and Dukes of Hazzard T-shirts. And I'm wearing a baseball cap that says grain belt. I didn't even know what a grain belt was. I thought it had something to do with farming. Turns out it's a beer. So the umpire says, you can't wear those. You can't have advertising of alcohol on a Little League game. And then the coach goes, hey man, this isn't school. This is just, we're not with the school. So I got to wear my cap. Anyway. Boy, I'm all over the place this morning, huh, sweetie? Yeah, you are. Did you want to do a prayer or something? Yeah, I suppose I could. So, Boozhoo, everybody. Let me say hello to everyone first. Before I start telling stories of church and Little League somehow. Oh, anyway, this was the ending of that story. So, I went to church and I went to the summer camps like church summer camps at Camp Oak Hills. And, had a lot of traditional Christian church upbringing stuff. Indoctrination, if you will. I'm not saying it was all bad or anything at all. It's actually pretty cool to have adults care about your spiritual life when you're a little kid. But so they had a summer program. It was like, what was that, a release time or something? It was Bible school, they called it, in the summer for like 2 weeks or a month or something. You could show up to church during the day, and they would have like church something. I don't know. We never went because we had Little League. But after Little League got over, you could go down to the church, and there was still an hour of arts and crafts. So me and Lenny, we would go down. We'd go to Little League, and then we'd go down to the Baptist church and kind of slide in on the fun part of their church school. Because, I don't know, it didn't occur to us that it was weird. And so, we'd show up and start making leather goods. You could make your own belt, put your name on it, Or I remember one time we had this craft where you just painted on a mirror. That was fun. So I painted cartoons and stuff, and then had my own mirror. And then they would give you snacks and stuff. So we were starving too. And they make you little sandwiches and, orange slices or whatever. But we were never there for the church part. We were just there for the arts and crafts and the lunch part. And finally the head of it, some lady, she comes up to him. She goes, "You boys, you can't just come here to church school for the arts and crafts and the snacks. You either got to come for the Bible instruction or don't come at all." We're like, "But we got baseball. Don't make me choose between God and baseball. God will lose." So they kicked us out of church school. And then that's when we started smoking cigarettes. That's when we went down a bad path. I don't think we started smoking for a couple of years. But, yeah, so church. It is Anama Egijagad, the prayer day. The day of prayer. So let me say hello to the Boozhoo crew, and then we'll say a prayer. I will pray for the souls of these wayward viewers of our show. Let's see, Brandy Mercy. So I said hello to Brandy, of course. And then there's Chris Favre. Chris Favre. Favre. Boozhoo, Chris, how are you? A lot of people are CEO Christians. Christmas, Easter only. Yeah, I'm afraid I might be a CEO Christian. I'll go in there for a funeral once in a while too. Maybe a wedding. But otherwise, I don't know. There's something kind of embarrassing about just going to a church for the first time. Because they got their whole thing going there. You don't know who's going to be there. It's usually just a bunch of old people. And let's see. Jim Dunn is here. Mino Giga Shape. Jim's here, sweetie. Boozhoo, Jim. Natasha says hello. Anybody else who I'm missing? Oh, what a crowd. All three of us. All five of us, whatever. So, today's my prayer. So normally right now would be a good time because the sun's just coming up, and it would be a good time to put out some tobacco. But actually, I don't have any tobacco, so I'm just gonna say a prayer. Get you Manadu. Oh yeah, what you want? No, I'm saying a prayer. Oh, are you praying to me, son? Yeah, I was just wanting to say a prayer on this prayer day. Oh, sorry for interrupting. Interrupting then. Yeah, okay. Get you Manadu. Yeah, what you want? No, I'm praying. Oh, sorry. Get you Manadu. Daga we duka wishan. We ni ji nana good wendaman. Gio dapanaman inu gagashkit gitosiwan. Ji anji sadoyan. Ji apichi de eyan. Ji anji sadoyan gagashki gitoyan. Ji de apichi de nawakayan. Ji kendoman ono. Ape inge. Great Spirit, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. So, that's the Serenity Prayer. Some of you might know that because you had to quit drinking and you found yourself at an AA meeting. An Alcoholics a meeting. It must be confusing for people in Canada when they go, is this the AA meeting? Oh, this is the AA meeting, eh? Is this AA, eh? No, this is AA. Huh? Oh, that's a dumb joke. But the Serenity Prayer, it's a really good prayer for people trying to stay sober. For people who are struggling with addiction or anything really. You know, the serenity to accept the things you cannot change. You know, the courage, you know, to change those things that you can't accept, you know. It's scary. It's terrifying to make changes to your life. It's really scary to do something that you know it's going to be difficult. You know, when you quit drinking, you're saying, okay, I'm going to quit getting drunk. And it doesn't mean I'm just going to feel better all the time. I'm definitely going to go through a period here where I am depressed, anxious, bored. I'm going to lose all my friends. I'll be lonely. You know, it takes courage to take on, you know, all that for something greater. But like every recovered alcoholic will tell you, oh, life gets way better. You know, it's the source of all your problems, by the way. You know. But then, you know, to accept the things you can't change. You know, life is not perfect. You can't necessarily you know, some people are just born alcoholics. It's like, yeah, you can't drink. You can't change the fact that you clearly can't handle it. Maybe some people can. But that ain't you. You know, I mean, it might be you, but something, you know, sometimes there's some things you just can't change. You know, you're never going to be younger. You're never going to be taller. You know, some things you have to accept. Some people will die and you can't bring them back to life. Trust me, I've tried. You create like a Frankenstein monster. It's more trouble than it's worth. They usually wreak havoc and then they want to that's what the story of Frankenstein's all about. Victor Frankenstein. You know, Frankenstein is actually about the doctor. It's not about the monster. Hollywood mixed that up. But Victor Frankenstein was trying to find a cure for death. He couldn't accept that his mom had died. And in that effort to find a cure for death, he thought, well, I have to create life. I'm going to do it by taking bones and flesh from different bodies, and brain from somebody really smart. And, you know, it's interesting. Frankenstein in the one movie, they're trying to vaccinate a village. And the guy who gets killed and becomes Frankenstein, he's like, you're not sticking that with me. In me. You're not sticking me with that vaccination. and he ends up killing the doctor, and then he gets hanged for killing the doctor. And it's interesting, now we're living in the Frankenstein days again. That'll be me. They'll be trying to vaccinate me, and I'll be like, you're not going to stick that thing in me. And I'll stab the doctor. And become Frankenstein. Anyway, so Victor Frankenstein, he wanted to cure death. Couldn't accept it. And so he goes about to create life and sort of succeeds. But then the life, why it's a horror movie is that it's his fault. His creation exacts revenge on his creator and kills all the things his creator loves. His girlfriend and his nephew, or his brother and his nephew, and then his dad. He just goes on a killing spree. And so Victor Frankenstein is I never read the book, but the movie opens with him hunting the monster. So why Frankenstein? He could not accept the thing, things he could not change. Yeah, people will die. You can't go back, I don't think. I don't think time travel's possible. But there's a serenity, there's a peace, there's a bungan to accepting things that that's the way it is. This is the truth. Accept it. It'll never change. Or everything changes, but and then the wisdom to know the difference. What if you're wrong? What if there are things you can change? You may say, well, this is just who I am. I've always been poor. I'll always be poor. I must accept it. Well, maybe you don't have the wisdom yet. Maybe you're wrong about that. So that's a good prayer to ask Gitche Manadu, to give you the peace to accept things you cannot change, to give you the courage to change those things you can, and give you wisdom to know what are the things you should be working on, and what are the things you shouldn't. Sometimes you just got to give that up. Okay, I'm fine. The Serenity Prayer. But that's not the OJIBWE word of the day. That's just a prayer. You know what I want to talk about today? Are you going to talk about aunties? Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Natasha. Boozhoo, everybody! And I am Nanaboozhoo. For anybody who's new to the show. But our aunties are play a sacred role in the Anishinaabe Bamadaziyan. The Anishinaabe life. Inzagos is your auntie on your mom's side. This would be your mom's sister. Inzagos. And then there's Nino Shane. Not Weenie Mo Shane. Ni Mo Shane. That's sweetheart. Nino Shane is your auntie on your dad's side. And we also have aunties that are like the lady who is married to your dad's brother. That would be your Nino Shane. And then the lady who's married to your mom's brother would be your Inzagos. But then there's another kind of auntie. the mean res auntie. This is the auntie who is the the drinking buddy to your mom. the lady who went to high school with her. And basically any adult woman in your life when you're growing up is your auntie. And these are the ladies who they're kind of like second string moms. They're the women who they still have the authority to tell you to straighten up, to get after you if your mom's not around, to tell you to behave. But they're also the ones who you can call like a mom, if say you don't know how to brown hamburger, And you don't want your mom to know that you didn't pay attention to anything she taught you. So you call up Auntie. You say, Auntie, what's up with the browning hamburger? Do I need to butter the pan before I just put in frozen beef? I want to make tacos, but I don't know how to brown hamburger. You can just call up Auntie, and she'll call you stupid, but then tell you. Or if you're sick, you can call up your auntie and go, Auntie, I'm sick. And she may bring you some groceries. Aunties are the moms who don't give birth to you, but they're also the non-moms who have a right to smack you if you need it. Aunties are sacred. I love my aunties. Aunties are no nonsense. My Auntie Tammy goes out with my Uncle Vernon. Everything they do, they're connected at the hip. And he does some gross stuff, like gather leeches. She goes out in the swamps with him to pick leeches. You know? She's the puller when they gather wild rice. When they go racing together, she's the one standing up with the pole, and he sits in the canoe and knocks the rice in there. You know, my auntie's tough. My auntie played softball because my uncle played softball. Yeah. Aunties will chew out your brother for you. If your big brother's picking on you, an auntie will, she'll stick up for you. Sometimes aunties can be, like I have aunties who, my mom, she was the oldest of 10 kids. So I have aunties who are not that much older than me. And so it was fun, like my Auntie Robin. She was the one who sort of introduced me to comic books. You know, she was a few years older and she was into comics and horror movies and ghost stories. And my Auntie Robin, you know, she was like the first teenager I ever knew when I was still kind of an elementary kid. She was a cool hippie teenager. My Auntie Robin looks just like, or used to, what's her name? Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. I think. I'm sure that I think she does. Because my mom kind of looks like Liza Minnelli. But, I saw The Wizard of Oz the first time with my Auntie Robin. And she wasn't that much older than me. We were little kids. But to me, she was grown up. And she had braids like Dorothy. You know? And so to me, it was like my auntie was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. But, aunties. In the goes. Aunt. You know, if you come from some places that will say aunt. When I'm reading aunt, we usually say aunt around here. When I read it, I always say aunt because I see the U. Oh, that's her aunt, isn't it? And there's Nino Shane, your dad's sister. Nino Shane. But yeah. And aunties are at every function. They're at every Christmas, they're at every funeral, every wedding. You grow up with your aunties. Your aunties keep your uncle in line. Your aunties are friends with your dad or your mom, kind of out of proximity. They kind of have to be friends if they're not like siblings, because they're just at everything. They're the friends that you don't choose. The friends you inherit because you married their brother or whatever. Yeah. But aunties are important too. If I was talking to little kids now, I would ask how many people here are somebody's auntie. Because even little kids can be an auntie. I remember being just impressed that my friend, when we were in elementary, he was somebody's uncle because he was much younger than his other siblings. So he had a grown-up brother already. And then he made a baby. And so this little guy became an uncle. I've even heard of people being younger uncle to their nephews because parents didn't know when to say when. That's enough kids. Hey, Jessica's here. Boozhoo, Jessica. Jessica's here, sweetie. Boozhoo, Jessica. Yeah, nice to see you. We're talking about aunties. Are you anybody's auntie? Or aunt? Or aunt? Or Nino Shane? Inzagos. Hey, I'm your Nino Shane. Next time one of your nephews or nieces, you can always pull that. This is why I'm saying I think people need to know the Ojibwe terms because it sounds more official. If you can say, hey, I'm your Nino Shane, suddenly a little Indian kid's like, oh, geez. She's got some kind of title as opposed to, hey, I'm your auntie. You got to listen to me. Go take this 75 cents. Get me a Pepsi. Go to the machine. Get me a Pepsi. Come on, do what I say. I'm your Nino Shane. Yeah. Some other time I'll talk about the importance of uncles. Uncles are important. But aunties are, they're the second string moms to our people. This is our way. I don't know. Oh, you know what I found? What's that? Fourth fret, I guess. Oh, the intro music? Yeah, remember when we used to have all our shows would start like this? I can't hear it now. How come that's not working? Oh, because it's not on. We should have done this today. Oh, fourth fret doesn't work anymore. Advanced audio properties. Fourth fret, monitor and output. Off. On. Close. Fourth fret. And nothing. Oh, maybe because I don't know. Sorry. I'm just trying to make this live stream as boring as possible. I was going to have some opening music, but then I realized I unplugged the thing, so we don't have it. Anyway. So, that's all I have to say about aunties. Let's get rid of that. Inzagos. Aunt. Nino Shane. Aunt. Sunny day. Ojibwe word of the day. So, in today's headline news, what's going on in the headline, sweetie? I guess there's a crisis at the border. Yeah, I guess. I haven't really been paying attention. But apparently there's a bunch of people coming in. And kids in cages. Or something. Kids in cellophane. I don't know. They'll be here soon enough. But, every month there's a new thing to be afraid of. Chris Favor, gotta run. Headed to a sweat lodge. Oh, that's cool. Y'all have a great day. Me no geez you get. You too, Chris. Don't get too hot in there. Well, I'm hot-blooded, sitting in a sweat. Got a fever of 103. Come on, baby. Do you do more than dance? I'm hot-blooded, hot-blooded. Yeah, it'll be a big prayer day for Chris. He'll be in a sweat lodge praying to get you monado. Purifying himself. Even if you're not into traditional spiritual ways, a sweat is a purifier just because you sweat out all the dirt in your skin. And That's a really nice. That's what a lot of those, the Finlanders. I'm sure I told this story before. I had an elder tell me once that we stole our sweat lodges from Finlander saunas. We used to have really small sweat lodges, just tiny little things. You could only fit like 3 people in there. And then we met up with the Finlanders, and they brought over their saunas. And the Shanabs were like, "Oh, wow, you guys really know how to do it up. We're going to need a whole bunch more rocks to keep this place hot." But they said, yeah, in the winter, they didn't take showers or baths. They would just take a good long sweat. And it would clean you up. You just sweat out everything, wipe yourself down. I mean, maybe you jump in the snow for a minute. Clean off some of the soot. But they did it not just for spiritual, not just for praying and, focusing. They kept you clean. Indian people were really kind of, what's the word, fastidious? They like to be clean. We were really into our hairstyles. Apparently we bathed a lot in the summers. Like we just live in the water. And in the winters we take sweats and, we're clean people. Now it's like, oh, I wait till I smell. So, yeah. Anybody else here? So, yeah. The sweat lodges, Serenity Prayers, egg, you're good. I mean, what else can you say about that? Does prayer even work? Are we just talking to ourselves? I used to ask that question a lot. What if we're wrong? What if there is no God? And all this prayer and all this guilt is just stupid. Because if you never had to rely on it, then it's hard to, it seems silly. It's like, well, should I pray out loud? How's he can the Great Spirit hear my thoughts? Okay. And then, But if you're lucky enough to ever see prayer actually change something in your life, just real where you just can't, you can no longer go, oh, that was just a coincidence. Like healing, if you get healed, or if you get a problem solved, there's some divine intervention in your life, and you go, whoa, hey, the healing worked. Can't believe it. I assume that was a superstition. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. But yeah, I believe in prayer. Even on one level, to meditate, to calm your mind, to center yourself, and to connect with your spirit. Even if you don't believe you have a soul, the act of prayer, it'll still work. Human beings are a weird combination of material and spirit. We are bodies. I mean, we're not, but we're all wearing bodies and walking around, driving around this aging flesh suit. So on the material level, that's definitely part of who we are. And then there's the spiritual level. A part of us that inhabits the body, that remembers everything, that never changes. I heard it said this way once. Because that part of if I ask you to picture a day in kindergarten right now, just a moment, whatever you can. If you're lucky and you had a good childhood, you might have a lot of memories. They say if you can't remember your childhood, it probably wasn't that good. But remember being as far back as you can. And then go ahead about 10 years and grab another memory. And there's a part of you that's the same between those two. and is the same right now. Everything else about you has changed. You're taller, you're fatter, you're older, you're smarter, you're stronger, you're whatever. Everything changes. You live in a different place. You have different, even hair color will change. Eye color sometimes can change. They say your cells die every 7 years and replace themselves or whatever. But something in you never changes, even as you get older. That witness, that's your spirit, that's your soul. That's the thing that was there when you were 5 years old, that was there at 15, that was there at 30, that's there right now. That dreams, that didn't get all caught up in whatever fad or trend, that isn't brainwashable. Your soul, we've forgotten how to notice that we are spirits. Living, we are spirits in a material world. I heard once that OJIBWE, Jibbe is like your soul, and OJIBWE would be like a breathing spirit or something. Like even the term OJIBWE, I mean, I know everyone says, no, it means puckered moccasin. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we name ourselves after a shoe. Oh, here's my son, Nike. But your soul, that thing inside your body, that will live forever. It'll go into one place or the other, apparently. They say if you're lucky, you'll have eternal life in the land of eternal happiness. In Abion, in heaven, in the old happy hunting grounds. Oh, this is a really happy hunting ground, huh? Oh man, I've never been so happy hunting. I'm so glad our spirits came up to the happy hunting grounds. I've killed 20 deer this morning. I'm so happy about that. Or maybe it's like happy bargain hunting. It's like Black Friday. That's my version of heaven. Walmart on Friday after Thanksgiving. Okay, Jessica says the word spirit literally means breath. Oh, okay. It literally means breath, referring to that which animates us and makes us alive. Yeah. It seems like the most obvious thing, and yet I went through many years where I just couldn't see it. I even one time I was in this other city, and I met one of those what do they call them, Krishna consciousness. The society used to call them Hare Krishnas. There was a couple of really cute girls handing out pamphlets and dancing or something. They wanted you to go to their little church service. And I went up there and I was talking to the lady. And I go, well, how do you even know we have a soul? I wasn't very spiritual in those days. During that one chapter anyway. And she goes, well, what's the difference between a dead body and a alive body? And I go, well, animation. And she goes, yeah, that right there. You can see it. When a person dies, they don't say, they always say, oh, he's gone. Like he left. Even doctors will say that, he's gone. The actual person just left his body. I hurt my foot. This is my foot. And we always talk about every part of our body like we own it. My head, my heart, my eyesight, these are things we own. They're not who we are. That gets into that whole debate about definitions, Who are you? And anything you can say about yourself, Well, I am a, two-legged, blah, blah, blah. And I go, what if you lost your legs? Or like, what is a dog? Oh, a dog is a four-legged creature. It's like, so if they lose a leg, are they no longer a dog? What about Honey Gold? My Uncle Vernon had a dog who lost one of his legs in a trap. And being a tough, whatever dog, he just licked the wound and got on with his day and spent the rest of his life, like 15 years, just hobbling around on 3 legs. He was a 3-legged dog. And he was a great dog, very happy dog. Not fast. You'd have to stop every little bit and let him catch up if you're on bikes. But he's a good dog. Anyway, but, he was still a dog even though he didn't have 4 legs. One by one, you lose everything of your definitions, I am a son. I am, my father's son. Well, when your father dies, you're no longer a son. I am somebody's dad. And then, definitions can change who you are. But the thing that never changes, and here's where I noticed kind of a duality. One time, I was all upset over something, and I was crying. Grown man, crying in the middle of the day, and I caught my reflection in the mirror. And for just a second, I got just self-conscious. I saw how ugly my face was when I cried. Not every Indian cries like that guy on a commercial with a single tear. I wasn't being stoic. I was like, and my face was all ugly and wet. And so for just a second, it snapped out of it. And I quit crying immediately. And I was like, what are you doing? And it was kind of like the other part of me told myself, cut it out. That part of you that is not upset, that is just seeing how upset you are, that is just watching everything go by. There's always a part of you that's unaffected by your emotions and your ideas. That's your soul, Why am I telling you guys this? You probably already know this. This is for children who watch later, who think they're tuning into Sesame Street and are in for a big surprise. Okay. So, I was just a baby when Arnold Joseph saved me from that fire. Remember Smoke Signals? Yeah, of course. It was a good movie. Do you want to come up here and say hello to the folks? Yeah, I could. Yeah. I didn't really plan much today. But, so yeah. Those are just some ideas on what a soul is. Felt like I should maybe say something on this prayer day. Get your man to do. Oh, that's right, my son. Get your man to do watches the show. I guess I always thought you would sound different. Did you, lad? Yeah. So, excuse me. So yeah, one more time with the Ojibwe phrase of the day for any latecomers. Inzagos, aunt on your mom's side. Nino Shane, aunt on your dad's side. Not to be confused with Nemo-Shane, which means sweetheart, which is what is Natasha. Oh, get out of here. Yeah. Nemo-Shane is your sweetheart. So lots of times you'll hear me call Natasha Weenie Mo-Shane, which means my sweetheart. And so, I'm going to turn the show over to Weenie Mo-Shane, to my sweetheart. But I'd like to play for you. This is the opening scene, speech, poem, or whatever from Smoke Signals. And I don't even know if it has a title. It probably does. But enjoy. I will see you again tomorrow. Gigawabamin Minawa. Hoa. Wait, that's the count. That's not what I'm looking for. On the 4th of July, 1976, my mother and father celebrated white people's independence by holding the largest house party in Coeur d'Alene tribal history. I mean, every Indian in the world was there. And then, at 3 o'clock in the morning, after everyone had passed out or fallen asleep on couches, on chairs, on beds, on the floor, a fire rose up like General George Armstrong Custer and swallowed up my mother and father. I don't remember that fire. I only have the stories. And in every one of those stories, I could fly. I was just a baby when Arnold Joseph saved me from that fire and delivered me into the hands of my grandmother. And Victor Joseph was just a baby too when his father saved me from that fire. You know, there are some children who aren't really children at all. They're just pillars of flame that burn everything they touch. And there are some children who are just pillars of ash that fall apart if you touch them. Me and Victor, we were children born of flame and ash.
Oh, wow. Sweetie, I just love that. It's so sad. Hey, Boozhoo! How you doing, everybody? Intikos, aunt on your mom's side. Nino Shane, aunt. A proper auntie on your dad's side. The sacred aunties. That's right. You better watch out for your aunties. I'm an auntie. I got some nieces I gotta keep in line. Let's go, girls. Anyway, so yeah, how you doing, everybody? Jessica goes, hey, Victor. Yeah, hey, Victor. Where's your dad? I always thought you sounded like Thomas.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you sound like that character in that movie.
Hey, Victor, where's your dad?
Yeah. So let's see who's here. Grieving Turtle. Boozhoo, Grieving Turtle. Jessica, Boozhoo. The world. Oh, great, she already said that. Grieving Turtle says, I tend to pray that my house won't leak when it rains. Yeah. You know what was weird?
What's that?
I think our house heals itself.
What do you mean?
Well, remember how the roof used to always leak in the bedroom when we first moved in?
Yeah, that's right.
We just never addressed it. In fact, I mean, the tile is all gross, and you can tell it used to leak. And so I put a piece of, like a thing over where the outlets are, and a bunch of blankets and whatever. I'm not a carpenter. But I noticed it hasn't leaked in years. Well, what was that? How come it leaked and then no longer leaks? I think our house healed.
Or maybe it was like ice or something up there that one year.
Probably. I don't know. It doesn't leak anymore. Now that I said that, it probably will. And Jessica says, and also, hey, Natasha. Hi. So, yeah, we're back. Weenie Mo Shane. Yeah, so I'm a Nino Shane. I'm an auntie because my brother has kids. And I'm also a Nemo Shane 'Cause I'm not a Boozhoo, sweetheart. No. But you can call somebody your sweetheart. And she's your, it's like your dad's brother's Nemo Shane becomes your Nino Shane. But yeah, so aunties are sacred because aunties are the ones who will take away the girls when they're getting old enough to they're becoming a lady, to becoming a woman. The aunties will in the traditional way kind of impart wisdom to the young girls. The girls will fast. They call it a moon ceremony. And they'll fast, and depending on your group, they might sweat, they might, pray, but they stay away from the men for a number of days. And the aunties will come down and kind of give you the 411 on what it is to be a woman. And it's like, okay, these are some of the things you need to know if you're going to grow up to be a good lady. These are the type of men to avoid. This is how to be a strong, empowered woman. I am woman, hear me roar. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. And so, yeah. What can I say about that? Probably not much. Jessica says, there's probably so much mold that it can't get through anymore. Hikes, yeah, that's probably it. I bet you it's just a bunch of mold that plugged the hole.
Oh, that's great. That's the thing people always talk about when they take people out of a house. They've been shut-ins like us.
Yeah.
They'll go, oh, there's so much mold. I can't believe it. What's the big deal about mold?
I don't know. I guess it kills you or something. Mold. Oh, what a moldy old place. Your auntie is like a second mom that's easier to talk to. Yeah, exactly. They're easier to talk to for some reason. Because you can be honest about what you're up to and not get into trouble. Yeah. Yeah, your mom is going to lay down the law where your auntie might just give you a stern warning. You get too drunk to drive home, you can call auntie and maybe mom doesn't need to know. And for crying out loud, don't tell your dad. So, I don't know. Sunny day. I noticed we had the Count picture there.
Yeah.
Did you want to give him a call?
Should I?
Yeah, would you mind?
Sure. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Dialing him up. And it's ringing. Hey, Count. Yeah, it's Nanaboozhoo. You want to be on the show today? All right, hold on. Okay, I'm patching him through.
Okay.
Line 2.
Line 2. Hey, Count. Count.
Natasha, how lovely to hear from you again today.
Yeah, I just wanted to call and say hi.
Oh, it is so lovely to hear from you. What can I do for you?
Well, we were just kind of talking about aunties, and I wanted to, do something kind of funny for the people watching, and you're always so funny, so I thought I'd call you up and say, ask you if you knew anything about, if you had anything to add to the conversation about aunties.
Aunties. Well, I am a boy, so I am not an auntie. I am an uncle.
You're an uncle?
Yes, I have a number of nieces and nephews. And so I think it's very sacred. Sometimes I'll take them out with me, and we will fly around Transylvania.
You mean Sesame Street?
Yes, of course, Sesame Street. And I will teach them the ways of the vampire, Nosferatu. I forget how to say that.
Yeah, Nosferatu, something or other. All right. Well, I was hoping you'd have something funnier to say.
No, I'm fresh out of funny ideas. Because you see, we don't prepare for this show at all. Sometimes we randomly come up with funny stuff. Other times we fail. Yeah, okay. Well, thanks anyway. Okay, Natasha. I will see you again. Gigawabamin. Minawa. Okay, Gigawabamin. Minawa. All right, that was stupid. All right, I guess I got nothing, you guys. I'm sorry. Here's the truth about this show. We just wing it. Sometimes it looks like we prepare more than we do, because like we'll have a teleporter or special guests. But usually, maybe this will be funny. I got a new job. Hi everybody. Do you like butter? Well, eat Land O'Lakes butter. Lots and lots of butter. Today's Ojibwe word of the day is brought to you by Land O'Lakes, where Indians are coming back. You can fire us, but we're not going anywhere, because we live in the Land O'Lakes. No, I'm just kidding. I was thinking about aunties, and so I was thinking about Auntie Jemima and how they canceled Aunt Jemima. Jiwa Gumma how is it? Jiwa Gummazagan. Syrup. All she wanted to do was make pancakes a little sweeter. But no, they said, hey, your aunties are racist. So they fired her. I don't think Aunt Jemima's a racist. You don't think she was racist? Yeah. I don't think anybody's saying she's racist. Well, then how come she got fired? Well, they're saying that she's stereotyping. That the act of stereotyping a black person is racist. Really? Yeah. Then we're in real big trouble. You think so? Hiya, hiya, hiya. How you doing? I say hiya all the time. That's a stereotype. Yeah, you're a racist. I'm sorry. I mean, I do want to be the new girl on the Land O'Lakes thing. I don't know what she did that was so racist. I guess showing her knees. Because as everyone knows, Indian knees are racist. You must never show your knees or be a racist. I don't know. I don't get any of that. I mean, I know they're trying to undo racism somehow. It's like, Uncle Ben. Oh, it's so racist to have a black man sell rice. Looky here. Looky. I'm not sure what's so bad about that. Aunt Jemima. She was your aunt. She wore an apron. She was black. I don't know. I'm not sure what's wrong with connecting black people from the 30s or whenever she was popular. Grieving Turtle says, Wisani says, nah, but canceling her was racist. She was based on an actual person. Hikes, really? So there actually really was an Aunt Jemima. Jessica says, can we start a campaign to actually put Natasha on Land O'Lakes butter? Yeah, should we? I could use the money. Grieving Turtle says, I won't buy Land O'Lakes anymore, or Uncle Ben's rice. Gordon is a white man fisherman stereotype. Yeah, Gordon. Gordon's fisherman. I don't know. I mean, it's just so stupid. I'm so tired of people fighting these battles for an issue that just doesn't matter. Like, transgender story hour. We're fighting for the rights of weirdos to read children's books to children. It's like, nope. Shut up. You're not oppressed. We just think you're weirdos. Yes, I'm going to say it. You can cancel me. It has nothing to do with anything. Gay, straight, whatever. You are a weirdo if you look and behave like a weirdo. I will leave it up to you to decide. But in my book, a man with a bunch of white makeup on his... I mean, not Kiss, but have you seen those transgendered story hour guys? That was in the news. I guess one of them just got in trouble for the obvious crimes.
But that was a whole thing, fighting for the rights of transgender men to read children's books in, kindergartens. It's like, shut up. Oh, there's a win. And then it's like fighting for the rights, fighting against racism in syrup bottles in 2021. What? Who is being oppressed? It's symbolic. It fights, we have to fight. It was like that old Monty Python sketch, which has come true now. When they're fighting, that one guy, he goes, from now on, I want you to call me Loretta. It's like, why do you want me to call you Loretta, Stan? Because I want to be a woman. It's like, why do you want to be a woman, Stan? Loretta, whatever. Because I want to have babies. But you can't have babies. You're a man. Well, don't you oppress me. And they all join in. They're like, we have to fight for Stan's right to have a baby. It's symbolic of our fight against oppression. It's just so funny. But that movie was like I think it's from The Life of Brian. And it's like a 30-year-old movie. But now it's like people are fighting for their rights, for men's rights to have babies. You're like, what? Quit fighting for causes that don't hurt any, who cares? Oh, no more Indians on butter logos. It's just the same thing with the Indian mascot. Oh, that's so offensive. The Red Lake Warriors have a Indian head nickel mascot. Oh, that's a stereotype. Our people can't get ahead if they see themselves as warriors. I'm not a mascot. Do I look like a mascot to you? In my headdress and buckskin? No, not at all. Jessica says, well, not really an actual person played the character of Aunt Jemima, but the character was based on a minstrel song called Aunt Jemima that was written by a black man. Yeah. Even that whole, the blackface thing, how, every Democrat at some point gets caught with a picture of themselves in blackface with the old minstrel white, mouth thing. And it's supposed to be the most offensive thing in the world. I mean, who cares? I don't know. Were minstrel shows offensive? How I love you, mammy. How I love you, sweetheart. I don't know. Why is that? I don't know. I think people even have the right to hate if they want. It's like, it's a symbol of hate. Yeah? Well, so? I hate anchovies. There, I said it. I'm racist against anchovies. I think they taste like minnow smell. I hate them. It makes me angry when somebody puts an anchovy on pizza. It's like, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you, Greta Thunberg? You put an anchovy on that pizza? You come to us looking for hope? How dare you? But, so, that's okay. You can hate what you want. I'm going to fight for the rights of people to hate again. It's like they've banned hatred. Well, I hate anchovies. I hate... what else do I hate? If I wasn't such a pig, I could think of food I hate, but I kind of like all food. Sauerkraut? I hate sauerkraut! Oh, you're a racist against the Germans. Don't say kraut. That's racist. I hate... What else do I hate? I'm having a hard time thinking of things I hate. I hate people who think they don't hate anything. who are trying to fight against hate. Love trumps hate. I never understood that. Leave Donald Trump out of this. Oh, we're going to march against hate. Well, I'm standing up for hate. You can go ahead and hate if you want. How do you know what you love if you don't hate anything? What do you hate, sweetie?
Oh, I hate wearing a tie.
Yeah, ties. Ties are hateful.
I hate long car rides. I hate the airport.
Yeah, there we go.
I hate I don't know, what else do I hate? I hate Walmart.
Yeah, I hate having to check myself out. I hate it. Bring hate back. Keep hate alive. Keep hate alive. I think that's what the Reverend Dr. King Jr. How many? Keep hate alive. That was his message. He had a dream that one day little boys and girls of every color would join hand in hand and hate at the same time the same things. Like Cardi B music. Hate it. Actually, Cardi B is like taking all the attention away from something else I hate. Billie Eilish. Have you ever listened to... Nobody's ever listened to more than 30 seconds of her songs. If you're over 10 or 20. It's the worst, most satanic thing I've ever seen. It's like something out of your nightmares. I hate that. I hate Marilyn Manson. I think he's ugly and fat and stupid, and his music's terrible, and I don't like anything about him. So, I hate him. Grievings Turtle says, we could say I anti-love something to technically avoid hate speech. Oh yeah, I hate hate speech. Not words that they call hate speech. I hate the censorship of certain words because of this idea that they're going to censor out hate. I anti-love lard in my refried beans. Yeah, that little hunk of fat. I anti-hate lard. Jessica says, black community. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Jessica says, she did make decent money playing the character of Aunt Jemima, though, and used to do it missionary work that benefited both communities in the area. Yeah. Hold on a sec. Hey, I just used the cough button. Yeah. Oh, it's hate speech. Don't say that. It's hateful. Well, so what? Like I heard somebody say this. He goes, number one, there's no such thing as there's no such thing as hate speech. That is what freedom of speech is. The First Amendment protects explicitly hate speech. You don't need laws to protect the ability to say I love you. Hey, no more loving stuff. But if you say certain words, they'll say, oh, that's hate speech. One thing I really love about Indian people is that we just won't get on board with the political correctness. Like, actually, black people are this way too. They're the only people who are using the N-word every single day of their lives. I just said the N-word because I can't say the hate speech word. But I say Indian all the time. Call myself an Indian. Don't care. And a bunch of white people want to make that like a hate speech violation. But Indian people just keep forgetting. Hey, we're not from India. That's a Columbus thing. Don't say Indian. Say indigenous people. Say First Nations of the North and South American, So Indian people just don't care enough because that's not what, we'll say we're Ojibwe or something. We're Anishinaabe. We didn't have a word for Indian until they made us just, claim everybody wasn't white as one group or whatever, So we're that way. And you know what other group is this way? retarded people. They don't care. Every once in a while you'll see like some angry parents on the news saying, we're going to stomp out this hate word, retarded. Our daughter is differently abled. She is developmentally disabled. She has a chromosome, blah, blah, blah. Something really impossible. No one remembers how to say it. And the little girl will be like, please don't hate. And she's been coached how to say it. But she doesn't have a hateful bone in her body. And the term mentally retarded almost suggests like a person who's pure and wonderful and somebody who's loved by everyone. Nobody is out there committing hate crimes against people with Down syndrome. Is Down syndrome, has that been taken off the list yet? You can't offend a person with Down syndrome. In that it's really hard. They're so lovable and so loving, and they assume the best of everybody. They just won't play that outrage game, unless they have some angry parents. You're never going to see like a bunch of people with Down syndrome organize a march against, the oppression of their people. And you may say, well, that's because they're too childlike. It's like, yeah, I know, but whatever. Would you all relax? Because the thing is, it's just like, so was my original point. Fighting these imaginary battles against, villains that don't really exist. Like Donald Trump being a dictator, literally Hitler. It's so safe because there's this guy who's not gonna come and rape you that you're afraid of called Donald Trump. You think he's a dictator of the world. You think he was going to come and I don't know what they were so afraid of. Well, I grab him by the whatever, And, he came 4 years, sat around, did a bunch of tweets that got people all excited, and then went away. Just like every president does. But they're burning down buildings to protest something. Oh, the cops. No more cops. They say, while, men with guns and armor aren't going to shoot them or hurt them in any way. I don't know. Calm down, you kids. I guess I'm just getting old and want everyone to calm the heck down. Let's see. Nescafe is the trendy new word. Nescafe. N-E-S-T-F-E. Nestle makes a... Well, it's Nestle. Grieving Trail says, you stupid Nescafe. Nescafe. Why can't you be as good as pure Ethiopian grounds? Yeah, okay, I get it. Nescafe. Nescafe. Pure Ethiopian grounds. Hispanics refuse to get on board too. They call everyone Blanco, Negro, Indio. Right to their faces. It's not offensive. Especially in the Caribbean, where most people are mixed. Yeah. It's always some other group. In fact, that's what happened here in Bemidji. They had a Black Lives Rally march. And I didn't know anything about it until after it was all over. It was on the news. Today, a group of people marched down to Paul Bunyan and Babe, the Black Lives Matter rally. And it was like a whole bunch of black people. I was like, where did these people come from? I didn't recognize a single person. And I guess there's a group from Minneapolis or something came up to have a rally. Like, okay, well, do what you want. Go gather underneath the shade of the biggest white man you'll ever meet and talk about the patriarchy. Jessica says, oh, and everybody who is Asian is Chino. Chino, that's sweet. But, and it's not going to be the Chinos who are going to, without, a bunch of college liberal white people telling them to be offended, who are going to say something. That's what it is. That's what I hate. I hate people who are outraged on behalf of other people, who want to fight against the patriarchy or whatever. It's like male feminists, white anti-racists, or whatever. College liberals who will, the straight white male who's part of the gay black alliance, and he's the first one to be, organizing something. And then, he tries to find friends based on race, and, let's fight against discrimination. I'm going to gather up all the people I know who are either black or Indian or gay or trans, and we're going to have a club. Oh, hi, I'm a Christian white male. Get out of here! You're the person we're fighting against. You hate too much. Oh, what a strange world. Take your finger out of your black medicine water. Oh, take your anger out on your black medicine water. I thought you said finger. I was like, why am I so crappy today? Well, your finger's in your coffee. No wonder. Grieving Turtle says, why is Mr. Clean stereotyped as a bald, pale face? Yeah, and a gay. Mr. Clean was one of the first dudes to come out with an earring. And I think it was even on the right ear, which in the 80s meant something. Mr. Clean. Yeah. How come Mr. Clean gets to keep his job? That's a stereotype of gay white men who bald. I don't know. Okay, here's the plan. We're going to start a political activist group against political activist groups. We're going to march against marchers. And we're going to burn the flag of flag burners. I don't know. Am I anti? Because at the same time, like I watched a video and there's some Karen who got up there just angry, just telling everybody to get a vaccination and to wear a mask at all times. And she gave no argument. She was just angry, telling you to shut up and behave and just do it. That you're just being childish. It's time to grow up. Cut it out. You are the reason we're still in this thing. Put on your mask. Get a vaccination. This isn't a time anymore. And she was kind of like me saying, shut up and quit protesting. But I wanted to go, no, you shut up, lady. Just because you've drank the Kool-Aid and don't want to question anything doesn't mean you're morally superior to anybody. By the way, speaking of moral superiority, and how they're trying to push Dr. Fauci, there's one doctor's opinion that changed radically 180 degrees in 1 year. But he's supposed to be the end authority on all questions regarding what we're going through. Or Bill Gates, Everybody, every baby boomer loves Bill Gates. Not everyone, but, if you watch public radio, if you watch public radio, if you listen to public radio, if you watch PBS, public television, everything's supported by Bill and Melinda Gates. They're paying for everything. And then you look into it a little bit and you go, oh, what's this online? Oh, it's Bill Gates' mugshot from 1979. And what was he doing? Oh, lewd sexual behavior. Exposed himself to an old lady. And was soliciting prostitution from men at a, one of those rest areas. The male bathroom. Oh, okay. That's just public record arrest. There's a picture. There's the police report. It's not 100% so, he can't control everything. And okay, that's nice. And should disqualify him from ever. I don't listen to people who do stuff like that. I don't care if you are a millionaire or you might even have good ideas. I can't hear it anymore because you whipped it out in front of an old lady or somebody or a police officer. I don't know what happened. Here's not somebody that I can respect at all anymore. Sorry. I don't even hate you. I just don't respect you. That's gross, deviant, icky behavior on every level, and it's over. Sorry. You're out. I cancel Bill Gates. Goodbye. And now that I said that, I'll probably have the show canceled. Sorry. It's been fun. Grieving Turtle says, read a book called Looking for Mr. Butterworth. Looking for Mr. Butterworth. Brenda Reese says, not even Bill Gates. Yeah, it's not surprising to anybody. Why isn't he locked up yet and tossed the keys? Yeah, well, he paid his fine, has it on his record. There's a lot of people that we just try to go, yeah, okay, when he was younger, who among us didn't do crazy stuff? It's like me, I never did that. And certain things you're just never supposed to do, which all these weirdos have done. Grieving Turtle says, pray that the plague of Australian mice doesn't get to our FEMA zone, eh? The plague of Australian mice. Yeah. I don't know. But, at the same time, the fact that I'm able to find out about Bill Gates kind of either shows that there's such a hoax going on that they're letting out little news bits to drive us crazy. Where they go, yeah, okay, here's this guy, and we want everyone to know that he's crazy and evil, and he's going to be the person who runs the world. And you go, what? How? Why? One of these days, we've run out of time, but one of these days, I want to get to the bottom of Hitler. Because I saw some of his artwork. Speaking of just, world players or whatever, and evil men. So Hitler is kind of the blanket, nobody argues. He was the most evil person in the world. He's, you can't even, if you have to jump on the I hate Hitler bandwagon no matter what, or you're a white supremacist. But then we all heard the story how Hitler failed out of art school or was denied entrance or something to do with art school. Because there's a famous joke that George Carlin said about, I often wonder how the world would be different if Hitler had was more successful in art school or something. Then I found some of his paintings, a lot of them. And they're beautiful. They're amazing. And I'm a harsh critic. Like, I think Van Gogh is terrible. Just bad. Van Gogh, one of the most famous artists of all time. I decide, nope, he was bad. I think, most artists are pretty poor. Andy Warhol, Jackson Pollock, these are poor artists. They can't paint well. I'm not saying I'm the best painter in the world, but I'm a better artist than Van Gogh. Okay? I don't know why he's famous. But Hitler, and I should have pulled up some pictures. Maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow. He was a beautiful painter. He would paint these cityscapes. And it made you go, how does a person become such a... You can tell something about a person's mind and their heart through their art? Yeah, tomorrow let's talk about Hitler. Hitler spent a lot of time in his youth, I guess. Up until he died pretty young, really. Mastering the craft of painting. And he had this whole ambition to become an artist. And somehow got derailed and became a fascist dictator. And is credited with being the leader, just, killing 6 million Jews. And then there's some rumors out there that maybe he didn't die. And maybe he came to America. And the actor who played Hitler is the actor who played Walt Disney. What if the Hitler character wasn't real? What if that was a painter, an artist, who somehow took on the character of Adolf Hitler? I don't know. I'll bring up some of his paintings tomorrow. We can kind of discuss who was Hitler by looking at his artwork. Tomorrow on the podcast about Ojibwe language and culture. So far off the rails, I have no idea what's going on anymore. But whatever. I want to say miigwech bisandawiag. Thank you for listening. I just can't start my morning without saying hello to the Boozhoo crew. Ah, sweetie.
That's right.
I don't know why we're talking about half the stuff we are.
Because we don't know what we're doing and we don't prepare.
Yeah, okay. So, anyway, Gisa Gain, I love you. Hope you have a great Anima A Gisha Good, a great prayer day, and I will see you again. Giga Waba Min Minawa. How? All right. Country Kitchen.
Oh, you know it, sweetheart.
Okay. Go to Country Kitchen. Gonna get some bread.